Fitin10 Nation, welcome to day 43, and Martina, that means we are now into, officially, the final 4 weeks of this challenge. And I see we've got on an old version of Fitin10 shirt.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. Nothing at all. You know, in case anybody's wondering out there, this is our latest logo, and this is old. This is like probably five years old or something. Vintage. But if you search that hashtag or you search hashtag Fitin10 Nation,
you'll find us.
You'll find a lot more posts. All right, Martina, we got a couple things to go over today. We want to talk about food entries. Shall we start with food entries?
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about food entries. So for anybody out there who doesn't know this challenge, I'm just gonna just put this very clearly and firmly in your mind. It matters how much and what you eat. So if anybody out there thinks that just eating, quote, cleaner is going to be enough, well,
or a little,
yeah, it's going to be enough, which it could be a difference. It might make a difference and you may see change from it. I'm not saying that you won't. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it matters how much you eat. And of course, the quality of food and the nutrition that you get. So the best way, in our opinion, on how to manage this is to macro count. You can fast. Okay, that's another way you can potentially eat less, or try to restrict your calories to a certain amount per day, although there's no real way of knowing exactly how much you're eating.
Yeah.
Or you can eliminate foods. You could do a ketogenic diet, or you can do, I don't know, paleo or low fat diet or something, where you're eliminating foods, and this is hopefully going to result in a caloric deficit. And quite often when you do these methodologies, there is some sort of deficit. But the problem is you just never know where you kind of really stand. And so it can be problematic when you reach a plateau. We macro count. I have all our clients macro count. These are food entries that people put into their food journal. So let's get into it here, Martina. 128 grams of ground beef. Problematic or not? Acceptable? What do you think?
Not really. I mean, what kind of beef is it?
Yeah, that's 4.5 ounces. That's pretty. Sounds like 128 grams is precise. It sounds like they weighed that out specifically.
Yeah.
But as you said, what kind of ground beef is that? Is this extra lean? Is this just regular? Is this lean?
Did you know that in Canada, actually, the standards are pretty loose that way? And then you're the one who showed that to me we found some extra lean that was like 90-10 or something like that. The Americans have it a little bit more specific where, you know, if you have 10 grams per 100 gram of beef, they call it 90-10, right? And so they have 85-15. The regular one is actually 80-20, which I think this possibly is the one, which is just like regular ground beef. And I think that's the reason why this person thought it was just a ground beef, but they're not created equal.
Well, this is 230 calories for 4.5 ounces. I'm going to say it's probably more around, 85.
Or 85. Okay,
85 or high 80s. Probably
because or else
somewhere.
It would be more caloric. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be more caloric dense. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in the States, though, you can get what's the leanest we've seen? We've seen 96.4. 96.4. That is pretty good. Trader Joe's has that. So not a terrible entry, and you know this is slightly on the fattier side, so it is a more conservative entry for sure. But again, we'd want to know what is the leanest on the beef. It's as simple as that. 1 cup of homemade chili. Problematic, Martina? What do you see? Somebody puts that in their journal.
I see ground beef was problematic, and there's ground beef in this chili, so we get the same questions. There's so much to be said about this recipe. I'm not even sure. And homemade, does that mean that you made it yourself?
Yeah, so that would be the first question. Is it homemade? Is this entry an entry that you created, and so therefore it accurately reflects 1 cup of the chili that you actually made? Or is this an entry that you just found out there in the ether that you pulled in, and now you said, well, I had 1 cup of chili and this entry says 1 cup of chili, therefore they must be the same.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not the case.
Right.
I mean, it's possible, but it's highly unlikely.
And you know that I eat a lot like this, and that's something that you are not a huge fan of, and is making batch food that always contain a certain amount of protein, fat, and carbohydrates that are mixed in, and I measure everything. But then when I split it into those containers, you know that they are not going to be created equal.
You know, it reminded me of when you first started making me food, when we first lived together 13 years ago. And do you remember that?
Oh, do I ever?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to tell them what this is about?
No, well, I think it's better if we tell them.
Yes, I mean, I used to cook all these amazing foods. I mean, I think I'm a good cook and everything, but I would mix the protein, the carbs, the fat together, and then I remember you wouldn't be able to eat it because you had no clue what was in there, and neither did I. So I still eat the same, and I know that that's kind of a pet peeve of yours, because technically when I split my meals into all those containers, technically one could have a lot more protein than the other, and fat, etc. Even though it's really well mixed. We're talking about chili, for example. We're talking about fish soup. We're talking about the bison tomato sauce that I made recently. But at the same time, like I said, I usually make about 6 or 7 containers, 400 calories a piece, and I'm thinking that if I eat those containers, which I will, within the next 3 days, whether I have 10 grams of protein more today and 10 less tomorrow, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, but I think when you made these things, this is again a long time ago, you knew what was going into them.
Oh yeah.
You just didn't know exactly how much or anything like that. You weren't macro counting is my point. So we didn't really know at the end of the day how much of what we were eating. We knew what was in there, we just didn't know exactly how much. And this obviously if you know me, it will drive me insane. So
it did, and therefore you refused to eat my food.
Did I refuse to? I guess I did.
Big time.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't. Yeah, but I don't think hopefully I wasn't rude about it. Right?
You were rude.
Come on.
But I
don't
learned.
think I was rude.
I
Really?
Yeah,
I was rude?
Now I'm so good at it.
Terrible.
I totally get it.
Terrible. And by the way, I want to come back on something you just said. You said you're not sure if you're a good cook. You're a professional cook.
It doesn't make me a good cook.
Well, I think how can you be
There's a lot
certified?
of professionals out there that are not good at what they do.
How can you be certified and
There's
not be good?
bad doctors, bad drivers, there are
But
bad
you're still
instructors, and bad cooks.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But I'm not one of them.
Okay, let's talk about protein leveraging.
Okay.
So this is really interesting.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so protein leveraging was something that I was not familiar with until I read about it in a study. And the idea behind protein leveraging, it's the idea that as you add more protein into your diet, your total caloric intake goes down. So what they found, and in this case, they've done this with various groups of people. This latest study that came out was with a group of more senior type people. What they found in this particular study was that for every percent of total caloric intake that you devoted towards protein, so let's just use an example here. Let's say you were eating, 15% of your diet was protein and you went to 16%. Every time on average, when you went up that 1%, you ended up eating 18 calories less.
Oh, so, total calories.
Total calories.
Amazing.
So your total calorie count's going down. So if you, let's say, decided to put in an extra 10% more protein into your diet, then your calories will just automatically go down. On average, this is what they're saying, would go down about 180 calories. So this is the power of protein because it is so satiating and it turns down those hunger cues. This is another reason why in our challenge we do give you more protein. This is not uncommon. There's several reasons why we give you more protein. This is one reason why we do it, is because it makes eating less calories easier. And to be honest with you, Martina, just for our audience out there who is unfamiliar with this challenge, we actually don't give you little calories for your body mass. You're actually getting, most people say when I give them their calories, it's too much food. It's too much food. So, but when you eat single ingredient foods,
that's how we feel.
And you get a lot of protein, it feels like you're eating a lot. So, but even then I start you on the lower end of protein, depending on your background. It depends on the person, but typically with people, if they're coming from a background of, not being used to eating protein, then
at all.
Yeah, we start you with a lower amount, and then we sort of build up through time. Message of the day, let's get to it, Martina. This is one of my favorites, a little bit cheesy maybe, but it is one of my favorites. Don't forget, you can start late, you can start over, you can be unsure, you can act differently, you can try and fail, and you can try and fail, and you can try and fail, and you can try it over and over and over and over again and still fail. And after all of that, guess what, Martina?
You can still succeed.
You can still succeed, believe it or not. It is all about, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. And I know that sometimes for a lot of people, this may feel like they're bashing their head into a wall, but it's all about persevering and then looking for those areas, as we mentioned this to other clients, of course, that are think they reach plateaus or whatever. It's all about trying to hone in on perhaps those things that need changing in order for you to continue to progress ahead.
Absolutely.
Right? The key is to keep going. And if you have not been successful in whatever endeavor you're working towards, you've got to keep trying. You do. This is where the magic lies.
Yeah.
Right? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude, and we'll talk to you all very soon.